sacrifice for their country, Lord, that you gave us here and give us the blessing to live in each day. Lord, we thank you that you came as a servant leader. And Lord, I thank you that you left the example for us as men and women to be of service. And that's what these veterans have done, Lord, and that's what we as citizens of this great country attempt to do in all our ways, Lord. Give us grace, Lord, give us wisdom, give us understanding to be leaders, to be followers, to be fellow citizens, to love you and to love our neighbor as ourselves. Thank you for our food this morning and our time together. Amen.
Join the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you can be seated. All right, any guests this morning? All right, do not see any guests, so we will move. All right, so calendar update real quick. Next Thursday, we are back with our third Thursday.
Here.
Here, next Thursday, we've got
Elena Matthews.
from the Dallas Stars will be here, so a little update on the Stars and all great things hockey. So join us next Thursday evening, 7 o'clock here. And then we will jump into Thanksgiving break. So next Thursday, then we'll be off for Thanksgiving. But speaking of Thanksgiving, only means one thing, PAX for LH. Mark Gray has a word about PAX.
Actually, we did a great job fundraising. Thanks to everyone who donated. We are still accepting donations. We had another meeting last night. We have enough to purchase all the food that we wanted for Stoltz. Sam's really came through this year, helped us out with that. So now we're still accepting donations if people want to give. We're providing fruits in the packs, which has never been done before. Fresh fruit. It's expensive. We wanted to put it in there to begin with, but it was just putting our budget layer over. So there's been people who have been donating. So if you still have friends, or just you guys would still like to donate, it's just going to make it even better. So we're also able to get Pop Tarts in there this year, which makes me happy. So we have some lot of good things, helpful things in there too, and this things as well. So the fundraising has gone really, really well. Now we're ready for the hard part, which is the working. We've got 2 dates to think about. This coming Tuesday, which is the 17th. Wednesday. So we have a little more logistics to deal with this year because Sam, we need to pick up the food. So Brian, Till, and I are going to bring some box trucks. So we're going to need 2 of them. If anybody here has access to box trucks, if you want to let us borrow for a couple days, that will help save money. If not, we've already ready. But we're going to go down there. We're going to load up the box trucks for us. We're going to drive them up here on Wednesday morning, and then we're going to start unloading all the products that have cables. We have a sign up sheet for that. It's 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock on Tuesday. We'll have lunch, and we'll just have people kind of doing all the logistics. And the big night is pack night. That's when you come up with your family, 6 to 8. There's a sign up sheet for that. That's normally where we're going to under the people here. We have the assembly line, super fun, loaded into the trucks. That's when you can bring your wife or kids are also welcome to. Super fun. It's a family atmosphere. Bring anybody if you have friends. We're happy to come. And then the next day is when we deliver students. We usually have some teachers. We usually have some girls from 100 women's help us, but we also expect to have exchange programs there as well. We'll sign up for that, and that'll happen the next day, usually around 2%. So we will send out links to the sign up meetings so you know the exact times. And we'll help with my information on there, Brian. So if you'd like to text us or reach out to us, there's ways you want to help.
Thank you, Mark. So yes, I'll be looking for the sign up on that. Another date tonight, at the high school. Playoff game number 1 is tonight. So we've got a home playoff game. So if you were looking for an activity, head over to the stadium to cheer on the Wildcats. Councilman Wu is here. I talked to him this morning. He is going to stick around after So as opposed to giving an update as part of the meeting right now, he will stick around, so if you do have any questions, he will be here for that. Let's see, Patrick Brown has an update on an event we had with Carlin.
What? You think it's this far?
Okay, the results are in right here. Been tabulated by Mr. Todd Bowen. All the five. Okay, just kidding. All right, everybody knows how well Carlin dialed in the weather. It was a Chamber of Commerce day and very good records all the way around. Number one record is the total revenue this year was over $335,000 in total revenue. So it was very, very good. Of that number, we had another record as far as sponsorships, which, as I always say, is the number that drops the most money to the bottom line, and that was in excess of $130,000. So before I get the final net income number, everybody that was on the Oktoberfest committee, could you stand up? Obviously, it's Carla and I have been doing this for many years, and we love doing it, but obviously it can't be done without a whole host of people to take a piece of the pie and run with it themselves. But at the end of the day, the net with a few minor changes will be in excess of $130,000, which is a record.
Yeah, so it was a, like I said, record-breaking year. Thanks again to those three gentlemen for their work, also the committee. Patrick had so much fun, he just said he loves it, he just wants to keep doing it. So he might be the Doug Ravy of Oktoberfest, so just keep him in the seat. So yes, great year. That will certainly put us in a great spot moving forward for all the fundraising goals and needs. So let's see. What else? Yes, sir. Yes, we will. Yes, that'll be part of Bill's introduction. Yes, sir. That's still his thunder, but yes, I did. Let's see, any other announcements I left off before we go? All right, with that, I'm going to turn over to Bill, and we'll get started with the program.
Good morning, all. So yesterday was Veterans Day. Veterans Day started in 1919 as Armistice Day after the end of the Great War, Woodrow Wilson declared it to be a new national holiday. And since then, and after World War II, it evolved to be Veterans Day, which is a great day to salute all the men and women that have served in our armed forces, not just them, and also thanking their families as well. So the National Exchange Club has a couple of designated meetings that they like us to hold each year, this being one of them. And I know as a board member here, I'm contractually obligated to say that Youth of the Month is my favorite meeting, but this one is my actual favorite meeting. So first and foremost, would like to salute all of our veterans that are in this room. So if you've had the privilege and pleasure of serving in the armed forces, if you please stand for us. We thank you, and we thank your families as well. I know that Poteet was celebrating this very American holiday in Mexico, which was wonderful. So this year, I was working with Wes Johnson, who is our Director of Americanism and Citizenship, on who would be a good speaker for us. So Wes has a friend and colleague that he's like, this guy would be interesting. So we talked a bit and got to meet him, and he's like, I think the speaker will be great. If nothing else, because he sent a pre-printed, time-appropriate bio, so I didn't have to make it up, which was nice. So our speaker this morning is Chad Suitonu. Chad started his military career at the United States Military Academy, where he graduated in 1998 with a Bachelor's of Science in Operations Research. While at West Point, Chad was on the football team where he played outside linebacker. Upon graduation, he was commissioned as an officer in the Corps of Engineers, was stationed in the Mojave Desert, South Korea, Fort Lewis, Washington, and Washington, D.C. In 2003, Chad deployed to Iraq as a brigade staff officer, where his brigade's primary mission was constructing forward operating bases. Then in 2005, he deployed to Afghanistan as a company commander, where he was in charge of 135 soldiers and about $5 million worth of equipment. And once again, he was in charge of building forward operating bases and roads throughout Afghanistan. Chad left the military in 2008, settled in Dallas, has worked in construction and real estate development since. He emphasizes this, happily married, has a 9-year-old boy, a 6-year-old girl, lives in Old Lake Highlands, has an MBA from SMU and a master's in public policy and administration from the University of Missouri St. Louis. Without further ado, Chad.
There. Okay, great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. When my friend and coworker Wes asked me to do this, I initially was taken aback last time I was here for Veterans Day a couple of years ago. You guys had a 1-star general who ran a Corps of Engineers in the sector. I don't have nearly the level of that prestige or pedigree or success militarily as a 1-star general, so I was a little self-conscious. I was like, I was just a captain in the Army for 10 years. But Bill said, maybe people would want to hear just my experience and then maybe the experience of more at the soldier level, the small unit level. I was a company commander, so at that company level as opposed to some of the higher levels of strategy. So hopefully I'll give you a good presentation, entertain you a little bit, tell you some stories, and maybe just tell you my experience in the military. Also, obviously, pay tribute to our nation the day after Veterans Day and our soldiers. Hit the right click or
Just the little arrow.
is it this one or?
Rick.
I don't know.
Chad, are there other slides in your presentation?
So as Bill said, I started my Army career at West Point. So going to West Point was about as fun as it looks in that picture. It's a tough school, great place to be from, tough place to be. It's an environment that's surrounded by just discipline, focus on academics and athletics and physical fitness. It's only got 15% women, or at least that's what it was when I was there. We don't party, we don't drink, we don't have sex. It was much different from your typical college experience. Good Friday night is just playing a board game and splitting a pizza with your buddies, which as a dad now, that sounds like a pretty good Friday night. But when you're 18, 19, 20, that leaves a lot to be desired. But despite all that, I wouldn't change it for the world. It was great. Through these kind of crucible environments is where you develop a lot of good memories, a lot of good friendships, lifelong friendships. So it was just a great opportunity. This is me 25 years ago and 25 pounds ago. I played outside linebacker. Lucky enough to get recruited to play football at West Point. That was really my in to West Point. I was just an okay student. I was an okay football player, but you can't be a standout in anything and be lacking in something to get into West Point. So that it was, you can't be great academically, but inept athletically, and likewise, you can't be a star athlete and not be able to handle the academic standards that you'll be facing over there. We played some great schools, played some big names. University of Washington, Auburn in a bowl game, played Notre Dame a couple times, played Syracuse when Donovan McNabb was there. So it was an experience that I loved. There was I guess an interesting thing about the football team there. It's tough to recruit, so they just recruit anybody that they can get in the door. There's about 150 freshmen that dress out, and then that number gets culled down to about 25 by the time you're a senior. But it's tough because to find someone that kind of can play at the Division I level, and then that is academically strong enough to get in, and then also, no one's going to go to the pros after you go to West Point, so you have to be able to recruit someone who doesn't have their heart set on playing in the NFL one day. After graduating in 1998, and the late 90s and 2000, that was a tough time to be in the Army. It just wasn't, we didn't have a mission. The last thing we did was the first Gulf War from '91. There wasn't much going on. It wasn't cool. We were almost purposeless. That was kind of my feel of it. A lot of people just wanted to, well, at least me and my classmates, we all kind of wanted to get out as early as we could. I think the Army almost degraded into something where we would spit shine our combat boots. Obviously, that's kind of oxymoronic. We would starch and press our battle dress uniform. So a uniform that's made to fight, to conduct combat in, we would starch it, and you'd be judged upon, how fit your appearance looked from that aspect, as opposed to, working your craft of being a soldier and a warrior. And so we were just detached from it, and it was just an odd place to be at that time in our military. So here's a picture of a soldier at a firing range, and if you've, I think we only saw another vet here, but going to the range, it was just tough. It was hot, it was dusty. You had a fire from the prone on your elbows, which was a very uncomfortable position. You guys at EOs had people barking at you. It was just a very undesirable activity, and you kind of just did it all the time. And when you were there, you had to carry your rifle, an unloaded rifle, up and down range all the time. So you're walking like this, and you have to walk real fast. And when you turn around, you have to face it that way. It was just so unconventional. Like, people don't fight like that. Soldiers don't fight with walking around with a rifle pointing up and down range. So again, it was just, everyone was detached. Everyone was just going through the motions. I thought everyone was just in a job that they were just passing as a job without having a real sense of mission or purpose. I didn't like it. A lot of my classmates were all trying to get out as soon as we can, just to enter the corporate world. It was like, the grass is greener over there. We all wanted to start our lives, start making money. It was just a tough environment. Then 9/11 happened, and a lot changed real quick. We finally had a purpose to what we wanted to do. We had a mission, we had funding, we had R&D, we had the gratitude of the nation. We were cool again. So, and it also brought adventure and travel. In an odd, perverse way, 9/11 was actually probably one of the best things to happen to the Army, happen to the military. Again, when you don't give a soldier or a warrior something to do, and he's just training all the time and passing time, it really degrades our military. So, oddly enough, again, hopefully you guys don't think it's a weird opinion, but it's probably one of the best things culturally to happen to the Army. It gave us a fight to fight, and when you're a warrior, you kind of need a fight to fight. So in 2003, I deployed to Iraq with the 555th Engineer Group. I was just a staff captain. I was in Tikrit, so right here, and that's just north of Baghdad. If you guys know of Tikrit, that's Saddam Hussein's hometown, even though he was mostly in the capital of Baghdad. I deployed there as an assistant S3, and S3 is an operations officer, so it'd be comparable to a COO at a company, and he had a whole small army of about 4 or 5 assistant S3, so I was one of those guys. When we were there, this is just a typical picture we took from our vehicle. It's just a war-torn country. After all of the missiles came in, and then we crossed into the border into Iraq. This is the entrance to one of the palace compounds. You may have, if you guys remember from the news, they would pull down all the statues of Saddam Hussein, but that happened in Baghdad a lot, and those were the ones on CNN, but it happened all throughout the country. These are a couple statues of Saddam Hussein on a horse. And our group, so engineers are pretty diverse. They build stuff. They work with a lot of explosives. Our sappers do. We put in bridges. So we had sapper attachments, and they actually blew up these statues off of this palace entrance. And then it was funny. They blew up the statue, came tumbling down, and then they cut off the head of the statue, and we had that statue outside of our brigade tactical operations center for a while, and then they brought it back with them, and they had it in their office. I always thought it was odd. Did this shut off?
It's technology day.
Can you guys still hear me? Yeah. Okay. I'll go without the mic. So, like I said, the mission of the engineers is pretty diverse. We build, we blow up stuff with our sappers, and one of the missions is bridging. So this is the Tigris River. It goes throughout Iraq, but this is specifically into Tikrit. So this is a pontoon bridge. So if you guys don't know what a pontoon bridge is, it's basically a bunch of boats or pontoons, that's something that floats, and then you basically lay decking over top of that to cross the bridge. So this is all just a floating bridge. And these pontoons, these specific pontoons aren't open bow boats. They're totally enclosed. So they come out and they clamshell open, and then you lay the decking on top. So this is how the military has crossed has crossed rivers for hundreds of years. A tank could drive over this thing easily. So it's a pretty cool function that the engineers perform. We do a lot of route clearance, route establishment, and route maintenance. So when I say routes, like how does the Army go from one place to the other? This picture, this is my buddy Andrew Swedberg. He was another assistant S3 staff captain. We were just out in the market, but I show this picture, and I don't have a lot of good pictures, unfortunately. I had to go with what I had, but like I said, when the Army trained, thank you. So when the Army would train, like I said, at the range, and it was very sterile. It was very plastic. It was antiseptic. Like you didn't train how you should fight. And this is a good example of us. So you go from an environment of training where you're at a range and everything's very controlled and you can't do anything, to all of a sudden, they give you a loaded weapon and you're expected to walk through a market with civilians, with other people, potential enemies, with a loaded weapon. So everyone was awkward. Everyone didn't know how to handle that situation because we're so used to a very controlled environment. So, thankfully, when we got there, I think all of the Iraqis were so shell-shocked because of when we came in, they were somewhat passive. But if they were aggressive and they came after us, I don't think we would have been able to handle it well because we were passive. We were awkward with our weapons. We weren't properly trained on how to maneuver around. We do now because after years of being in that environment. But I thought the Army and training was almost a disservice to us before we went in because it was so controlled and so contained. This is just a picture of me in our talk. It's a tactical operations center at the brigade level. Boring picture, just me sitting at a table and chair. But I bring this up because I sat at that folding chair at that folding table for 13 hours a day, 6 days a week, and then we got half a day off on Sunday. But everyone did it. And we did it for a year. It was tough. But whenever I hear someone say, that math works out to about 84 hours a week. Whenever I hear someone say, I pulled an 80-hour week, I always question that. I think you're just saying that without knowing what those numbers really mean. But I think the Army really stretches you. Again, we would go out on missions periodically to go observe all the construction effort that our units were doing, but that was only 1 or 2 days a week. Most of the time, you're just sitting there grinding. So this isn't me sitting at a desk. I wouldn't say is hard work, but I would say that I'm able to work hard now, and I've carried that into the civilian sector because the Army stretches you, I think, in several ways. So this was just, I like to show this one because it's a corollary. It's how you can bring those Army skills directly out to the civilian sector in what we do.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Does that guy have on an eye patch?
Those are glasses, actually.
Okay.
So it's just a rubber band glass. They're horribly ugly. So we have a set of glasses. Those aren't them, but they're actually called RPGs, rape prevention glasses. So they're so ugly that no one will rape them. Just interesting. So obviously we were in Tikrit in Saddam's hometown. If you guys remember the news, that's where they found him in his spider hole. We actually went out to the spider hole. I had a picture of me in the spider hole, but I just can't find it. But just a funny, interesting thing that just a few miles away. When we heard they found him, like, oh wow! It was just right down the road. So we went down there and kind of checked it out, took a bunch of pictures. The Army put this piece of wood over top just to protect it, but it wasn't much of a hole. The hole was maybe 4 feet deep. Like he had to. He would sit in there and crouch over it with the little styrofoam lid over top. It was just a cooler lid, like a cheap cooler styrofoam lid, and they put a rug over top of it. So I thought it was interesting how I think I saw in a magazine, there was like this underground complex that he would lay down in and go to the bathroom, and it was none of that. It was just a little tiny hole that they dug in the ground with a styrofoam lid and a rug laid over top to try to disguise that. I also, the thing is the soldier who actually discovered that, so they heard he was there, they got intelligence that he was at this house. It was basically just a house along the Tigris River, and they went there. They couldn't find him. They had dogs. They were just searching for him, couldn't find him. And then soldiers saw this rug in the middle of the dirt. So that's kind of weird. Why is this rug here? And he kind of just kicked it, and then saw the styrofoam lid and lifted up, and then there's Saddam Hussein. I want to hear that story. But you figure he would have wrote a book, or someone would have identified him as the guy who actually found him. Because they were about to give up and just leave, and so interesting. So after Afghanistan, came back for a year, did some more training. I was took the position of company command. Company command is kind of the apex of a junior officer's career. You're probably in the Army at the 7 or 8 year mark at that time, enough to gain experience. You're a captain, and you take over a company of soldiers. So a company, I kind of go into the, just starting with Afghanistan. So we were in Kandahar, that's where we deployed to. Kabul's the capital, or Kabul. This is my company that I took over. It's about 135 soldiers. We had about $5 million worth of equipment and vehicles to take care of. This is me here. This is my driver, Delgado, also the guide on bear. I've got that guide on framed in my living room. But we're just an engineer company, and this is just a representation of some of the guys that were at our FOB when we took the picture. I did want to give a quick explanation of how Army units work, because people hear, oh, company, what does that mean? So just starting at the basic level, you got a squad. That's a squad is made up of 2 teams, Alpha team and Bravo team. You got a squad leader. He's typically an E6. Maybe he's been in the Army for 7 to 10 years. That squad goes into a platoon. There's about 3 to 4 squads in a platoon. A platoon's led by a platoon leader. That's a second lieutenant. He's the most junior officer there is in the Army. And then you got a platoon sergeant in E7. Again, he's probably been in the Army for 10-ish years. Then you got a company, and again, this is where the company level is where I had my company command. The company's made up of about 3 platoons, 3 line platoons, and then some type of specialty platoon. So each branch, infantry has their own setup of what their line platoons are and their specialty platoon is. Engineers have a different one. So my company was made up of 3 carpenter platoons and then 1 horizontal equipment platoon. So bulldozers, graders, scrapers. So that's kind of the explanation of the hierarchy of things. Going above that, the next level up is a battalion. Again, a battalion has about 4 companies. Above that is a brigade. A brigade has about 4 battalions. And above that is the division level that has any number of brigades. And those are maybe some of the more famous divisions you've heard of. 1st Cavalry Division, 82nd Airborne Division, 101st Airborne Division. Those are all the famous, Vietnam and World War II divisions you might have heard of. But that's just a quick explanation of how the hierarchy works. So the thing about being in company command, I was 28 when you take company command, and the great thing about the military is they give you so much responsibility at such a young age, to everybody. There wasn't anything special about Chad. Like, everyone gets it. If you stay in, you get to take company command. I question at age 46 if I'm ready for this level of responsibility. 135 people, a lot of equipment, and I'm much more wise, mature, and experienced now than I was back then. But I can't say enough about the military really just throwing you in the fire and making you sink or swim. So it's a great opportunity to have that level of exposure and experience. The missions we did, like I said, we had carpenters. We're building a maintenance bay here, so obviously we've got to maintain all our vehicles. So we bring our vehicles into a covered environment, somewhat clean environment. Got a concrete slab, and just maintaining all of our trucks, tanks, anything that needs vehicle maintenance. This is us building basically the airport at Kandahar Airfield. when we arrived, there was just the airfield and hangars. So when, soldiers are coming in and out there all the time, they just kind of sat under the sun for hours. So it was a kind of a tough environment to sit in. So we just built these shaded structures where they could list and manifest up and hang out until their flights came in and out. We worked with some local Afghan citizens, gave them some training, gave them some money to perform just jobs for us, gave them some carpentry skills. They performed just a whole list of tasks just to run the base. So, like I said, one of the engineer's missions is route clearance. So when you drive somewhere and you always drove everywhere, you had to go on a convoy. That's just a whole length of vehicles. And when you drive, you have to spread out. You can't be bunched up, because if you are attacked or come under an ambush, they can take out multiple vehicles at the same time. So these convoys, based upon the quantity of vehicles like my company had, they would stretch on for literally miles. So you got, me, I was up in the front, I had my first sergeant in the back, and we just radioed each other to make sure that all the vehicles are keeping up. So this is actually a picture of us driving out to a fob that we built in the middle of the desert. It was about a 16-hour drive. Like I said, it was all part of our just, this is how everyone drove to get around, just these long convoys. I mentioned part of our mission was route clearance. So the big threat and the big hazard to soldiers was IEDs, improvised explosive devices. So to combat those, our unit had, this is called the Meerkat, and you can see these are sensors right here, and as they pop down, and the Meerkat drives. So whenever you get to an area where you suspect there might be an IED placed, you can't do it all through the whole route, it's just too slow. Like I said, when we're traveling over vast miles with a bunch of people, so you just kind of hit the hot spots where you think you might get attacked, or where there is a visible indication that someone planted an IED. So the Meerkat puts down these sensors, and you see the wheels, like this thing is made to be hit by an IED. So if this wheel ran over a mine or someone detonated an IED, that wheel would just blow off, and the rest of the vehicle would be intact. So it's almost like breakaway components of the vehicle. You'll also notice it's got a V-shaped hull, so if there is an IED, it kind of hits. It hits the V-shape and it just deflects out without going into the passenger compartment. It's a real interesting vehicle, just something that's made to be hit by mines and IEDs. And then this is the Buffalo. So once the Meerkat locates the IED or the mine, then the Buffalo, and it'll mark that location, and then the Buffalo will come in and actually, it's got this huge articulating claw that comes out and actually digs up the IED or the mine. So again, this was all part of our mission. We had these when we traveled because they were organic to our unit, and then we would also go clear routes for infantry or armor that were on their way to go perform another mission. So whenever we would hear that a unit was moving out, hey, we're going from point A to point B to go clear this city, or to just establish something, we would go out the day before, look for the hot spots, clear the route, and then that unit could go drive through. On one mission that I was out, we actually found 5 IEDs on a route clear. It was just going to be a 2-hour job for us to go clear this route. So we just took off. It was me and my Humvee, a Meerkat, a Buffalo, and then another staff sergeant that was with us, and it just took all day. And we just uncovered 5. So I'm pretty sure that convoy that was going out the next day, they would have gotten hit if we weren't able to clear all those IEDs out of the way. These are what IEDs are. It's just an artillery piece, and they unscrew the top and they stick a detonating element in there that'll blow up, and then it'll ignite the whole thing, and it just creates a huge explosion and blows something up. And there's also just traditional mines, but mostly artillery pieces are common throughout the country. So there are a lot more available source to create an improvised explosive device. So on one convoy, this is one of our soldiers had flipped over his truck. This one wasn't hit by an IED. He just backed up to a sharp decline and fell, and the truck went over. So this was kind of the most hair-raising convoy experience that I had. So we were on our way to go build this forward operating base in the middle of nowhere, and we had to go through this pass. So this is one mountain range, and then it goes back up, and there's a very narrow pass right there, and that's where the insurgents planted all these IEDs. So we were within a 4-month period, probably 5 IEDs went off on here. So we knew we were passing through this, so we were trying to rally up, and you don't try to clear this, you just try to go. So if you're in a position where you can just haul ass through the pass, any insurgents in the hillside waiting to detonate something might not be able to get up to their position in time. So you kind of stage around this corner, and then you start going up the pass in hopes that we would get through the pass quickly before any insurgents could gather and set up an ambush site. Unfortunately, we had this truck overturned, so we're just sitting on the side of the pass where we wanted to haul ass through for just hours. Thankfully, no one got hurt, but this was probably this convoy overall was one of the toughest missions I've been on, because it was just so stressful. It was a 16-hour period. We're getting out to the middle of the desert to build a fob. While we're traveling, you have interpreters and basically a CB radio that intercepts other insurgents talking. So as we're going, our interpreters are telling us that people are setting up IEDs in anticipation of us coming. And we, one time I had a soldier that saw somebody in the hillside. He goes, "Hey, I think that's an insurgent. I want to engage him." Like, I don't know if that's an insurgent, or what if that's just a shepherd, or a kid. But how do you make that call? Maybe it is a guy setting up an explosive device, and we should engage him, but he was too far off. My call was like, don't engage him. I'm not going to, possibly kill a shepherd or a kid, even though it could be somebody trying to harm us. So we drove through, and we were okay. Once we got to our forward operating base, so we went out and built a fob in the middle of nowhere. We were our battalion's mission was constructing a road between 2 provinces. Yeah, I mean, it was at least a 100-kilometer road. It was just a very long road. You had to build a logistics base in between the road projects, because it was, if you're just coming from one province and the other, you just got too logistically stretched out, so you needed a base in the middle. So we went out, built this base in the middle of nowhere. Definitely an exciting project. But as far as base construction goes, our forward operating base is nothing sophisticated. This is a guard post. You kind of start with your guard posts at all the corners, and these are made out of HESCO bastions. So HESCO is just a name brand of somebody that sells something to the military. These are just big baskets you fill with earth. So they come out flat on a truck so that you can unload them easily. You fill them with earth, and then you got a pretty great guard post right there, or a really strong wall. And then around those guard posts, you just push up berms, and those create the walls of your forward operating base. So nothing sophisticated, just a huge earth wall. But that way you can walk around. No one can take direct fire at you. You're protected by this 7-8 foot wall of earth, and you've got the guard posts out there with soldiers manning those guard posts. So when you hear about forward operating bases, they're nothing sophisticated, nothing special. It's just you're making it out of the stuff you got at hand. This is just a picture of a shower we create. You just do what you can. Just wood framing, piece of canvas, and these containers on top we just fill with water. And the water you get from a well, that you have someone come out and drill a well for you, or we have water trucks and we'll go get water from a river or a well ourselves. These are some of the surveyors we have. So one of our missions was to build roads. So they would go out and survey the road. So it's just raw desert, and you've got to lay in a route. You've got to go find a quarry to get the road materials out, spread it. You've got to put in culverts where there's wadis or ditches so that the road doesn't get washed out. But these surveyors kind of dictated where the road would go. Just a bulldozer pushing dirt to establish the road. This is a grader, kind of grading out the road, making it smooth. So again, one of our primary missions was building these roads. So this was to take raw desert and just build, even though it was just a dirt road, it wasn't paved. It was just a vast improvement, because driving over that raw desert is just, it's painstakingly slow. So if you've got units trying to get somewhere fast, they're just going to get there fast. You see all kinds of weird stuff in the desert. Just a grouping of camels. So let me just grab a picture with these guys. You see odd stuff all the time. I saw two Afghanis fighting one time, and one guy pulled out a gun and just shot the other guy. It was just absolutely crazy. Just the stuff you see. You see a scooter with a family of 5 on it driving down the road, with just the dad, the mom, like 2 kids in the back, 1 kid up in the front, and just a motor scooter. It was just stuff you wouldn't imagine would be possible. This is me. That's my Facebook profile picture I've had since I started. So just a buddy sent me a Batman outfit. Funny picture anyway. So I'm rounding up or winding up, but this is me actually burning poop. So when I wanted to show this picture because most of life isn't fighting or building. In my case, a lot of it's just getting by. Just getting food, getting water, dealing with morale issues, having some downtime. But just logistically, when you got a bunch of soldiers, you got to deal with stuff. You can't dig a cat hole and poop in that. You can't dig a slit trench. That's just a big 18-inch wide trench, about 3 feet deep, and you all go poop in that. And it's as gross as it sounds. So when you got 135 soldiers, you need a better way to process something. So I show this picture because I think it's kind of funny, and I just want to tell you guys, a lot of life is, a lot of being in combat is just normal living and the logistics of life. But on this, so we build a porta-john type building, or just like a porta-john out of wood. You put your 55-gallon drum that's cut off in there, and soldiers poop in there, and then you got to pour diesel fuel on it, and you light it on fire. The thing about poop, it's got such a high moisture content, it doesn't just burn, so you actually have to stir it. So you're stirring this slurry of poop, piss, and diesel fuel until it's all burned up. So if this was a job on Dirty Jobs, the TV show, I think it would definitely win. So I didn't actually have to do this task. I just saw one of my soldiers doing it, so I jumped off my vehicle and took the picture. Just last 2 sides. I hear this a lot. Oh, thank you for your service, especially in Texas. Texas has got a lot of patriotism and nationalism. Every time I hear this, I almost feel self-conscious. I want to say, no, thank you, taxpayer, for giving me an education, for giving me a job in the Army, for giving me a life experience, for giving me travel, for giving me adventure, for making me a better person. So I always feel like I got the long end of the stick on that deal. But I'm thankful when people say that, but I always do get self-conscious, like, oh, if only you knew. Like, I got way more out of the deal than I put in. And then the last slide I wanted to talk about was just post-traumatic growth. You hear a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder. I've served with hundreds of soldiers. All of my closest friends from college, they've all served too, and they've been exposed to hairy situations. I don't know anybody with PTSD. it gets a lot of play in the media. I've personally never been exposed to a trauma that would qualify as a PTSD event, so, you know, this is just my anecdotal observation, but I think post-traumatic growth is much more pronounced. You can read studies that it is much more pronounced, but it gets no play because it's not sensational, it's not bad news, it's you know, the media doesn't give it the attention that it deserves. But I wanted to highlight to you that again, going through an experience like that, you come out better. 9 times out of 10, you come out better. You know, if you get really banged up, you might have some PTSD issues, but I haven't observed that. So I didn't want this crowd I always try to talk about it with people at large. PTSD is, you know, it's something that happens, but it's a small fraction of the people it happens to. The overwhelming majority is post-traumatic growth. You go through a hairy situation, you come out better. So just keeps going along the lines of what I've been saying. You get a lot out of the military. You get a lot out of your time in service and going through a crucible event. I'm going to encourage my son to hopefully join the military one day, so if he's of that disposition. But if you guys do have an influence over somebody who's looking to join, hopefully you can share with them, like, hey, I've heard you grow a lot, you get a lot out of it. Just go in and do a short stint and become a better man and a better citizen from it. So, and then that was the end of my presentation. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Gotta love technology. All right, so Chad, thanks again. Really do appreciate you being here this morning, and obviously your service as well. Thank you. So let's see, anything that I left off before? Okay, so PAX, be looking for that football game tonight. Go cheer on Lake Highlands. And with that, John, you want to sing us out for this?
My country is of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of thy pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside